Thanks for clicking on the video. If you like what you hear, please drop a comment and say hi. It'd help me out a lot.
The message didn't fail. It disappeared. Vera Kale stood at the edge of her private office aboard Unity's Promise, staring at a suspended holoscreen showing the diplomatic relay log. No transmission failure, no interception, no bounce back, just silence. "Try again," she said calmly, her fingers steepled under her chin. Talvin, her aide, worked furiously at the console. "Ma'am, we've attempted direct wave, archival ping, quantum compression pulse. Nothing's getting in or out of Sendari space." Vera's amber eyes narrowed. "Jammed? No. That's the thing. There's no resistance. It's as if the planet stopped listening." She turned toward the glowing model of Sendari, rotating slowly above the projection table. A vibrant world once known for diplomacy, cultural exchange, and unshakable neutrality. It had hosted the First Accord, the same agreement that brought humanity into the Galactic Council. And now, dead air. Status of nearby Alliance assets. Talvin brought up a second display. A science vessel, 2 freighters and 1 patrol cutter, all parked just outside Sendari's comm boundary. None of them are transmitting either. They're drifting in observational silence. Vera tapped the edge of the table, thoughts moving faster than her speech. "Bring in Council Command. I want a closed emergency vote to authorize direct observation." Talvin hesitated. "With respect, Ambassador, some of the voting blocks aren't responding either." Vera turned slowly. "Not responding," she repeated. "They acknowledge requests, but they're delaying meetings, scheduling procedural reviews, not outright refusing, just avoiding." Her jaw set. It wasn't refusal, it was fear. "Begin the vote anyway. Mark it Diplomatic Contingency Protocol 71. Talvin's hands moved. "And if the vote stalls, then we're past the vote." She moved to her personal terminal and brought up the encrypted council directory. Names she once counted as allies. Others she had outmaneuvered or bought time from. All of them now blinking yellow in session, on pause, redirecting. Vera leaned in, voice low. "This isn't stalling," she whispered. "It's suppression." Her private comms panel lit up. 1 incoming line. No ID. She answered with a flick of her hand. A shadowed voice, digitally fractured, spoke without greeting. "Do not pursue this path, Ambassador. Sendari is quiet now. That quiet keeps the galaxy safe." She didn't flinch. "Identify yourself." "If you speak too loudly," the voice said, "you may disappear too." The line went dead. Silence returned, but it no longer felt like absence. It felt like a threat. The shuttle broke atmosphere over Sendari with no resistance, no traffic control, no orbital clearance code, not even a passive ping. The only sound in the cockpit was the wind against hull plating and the quiet click of a sensor operator adjusting useless dials. Rowan Vale stood behind the pilot, one hand resting lightly on the support beam above her head. Her tactical armor was dull from recent fieldwork, and a dried scrape still marked the left side of her visor. She hadn't had time to clean it. There wasn't time anymore. "Visual confirms city structures," the pilot said. "Power grids nominal. Heat signatures inconsistent." "Inconsistent how?" Rowan asked. The operator replied softly. "Buildings are warm, streets are cold, like someone left the lights on and vanished." The shuttle touched down on the outskirts of Kilaran Spire, one of Sendari's major hubs, once known for cultural summits and interspecies learning halls. Now it stood still under a bright violet sky, its silver towers gleaming like tombstones in the sun. Rowan and 2 reconnaissance troopers disembarked. Their boots echoed louder than expected on the ceramic-plated streets. No movement, no wind, no people, only silence. She led them down a main avenue. Bright banners still hung between lampposts, advertising last month's Alliance Unity Festival. They flapped gently in an artificial breeze. At the base of one tower, a display screen flickered to life. Unity through stillness, loyalty through silence. The voice was calm, genderless, looped. Rowan aimed her scanner. No broadcasting tower, no data source. The screen was running locally, on every wall, every window. The same phrase, unity through stillness, loyalty through silence. They entered a plaza near the Central Council building. Statues of past diplomats and planetary leaders lined the perimeter, each one dressed in ceremonial robes, each one now defaced with streaks of red paint. One of the recon troopers whispered, "This isn't occupation, it's erasure." Rowan crouched near a public console, still active. She ran a quick surface-level data skim. Access logs, deleted. Transit records, deleted. Population census, deleted. Visitor logs, deleted. She scrolled further. One name flickered briefly, then vanished, as if the system noticed. That was when the door opened. Not all the way, just a creak from the Great Hall of the Planetary Council. Not pushed, not automatic. Something had been watching. Rowan drew her weapon. The others mirrored her, stepping toward the council stairs in formation. They moved like ghosts through a city of ghosts, past gardens overwatered by forgotten programs, past food stalls still stocked but untouched. Inside the Great Hall, silence. Benches stood neatly arranged. Translation drones floated in standby. At the far end, the main chair of the planetary speaker sat empty. Behind it, a massive vertical screen activated on its own. Speak and suffer. Be still and endure. Rowan lowered her weapon just slightly. Her voice was quiet. They didn't invade. They didn't fight. She looked around at the intact walls, the undamaged systems, the untouched food. They just turned it off. The council tower looked the same. Polish stone, floating lights, a dozen dignitaries murmuring across suspended platforms. But Vera Kale had been in this chamber too long to be fooled. When voices dropped too low, it meant something was being buried. She stood at the lower dais, requesting floor time, but not being granted it. Not yet. Above her, two allied ambassadors stood on a shared platform, Councillor Velen of the Karai and Councillor Tolves of the Helari Compact. Both were dressed in ceremonial darks, faces unreadable behind tradition and protocol. "I've submitted 3 separate emergency articles," Vera said sharply, "and all 3 have been tabled. Explain that to me." Councillor Velen folded 4 long fingers. "It is not the articles that concern us, Ambassador. It is the pattern." Vera's jaw tightened. "Pattern?" Tolves stepped in. "You move too quickly, too loudly. Humanity is still seen as volatile, aggressive. To push investigation without consensus only confirms that suspicion." She turned toward them, eyes narrow. "So silence is preferable to discomfort." Velen gave a diplomatic bow of the head. "Sometimes, yes," Vera laughed, but there was no humor in it. She took a slow breath and leaned in. "Sendari isn't silent. It's been muted." Neither ambassador responded. "And if we let that happen to one world," she continued, "it won't stop. The coalition is testing us. This is a purge without blood, a conquest of consent." "Careful," Tolves said quietly. "Your accusations border on insubordination." Vera stepped back. "Good, let them. If your comfort matters more than truth, then I'd rather be insubordinate." Before either could reply, her datapad vibrated in her palm. She glanced down, a new message from her aide. "Private channel. Breach detected in internal comm systems. High-level traffic redirected from your office." She didn't move, didn't blink, just smiled. "Thank you for your time," she said aloud, backing away. As she exited the chamber, her smile faded fast. Inside her private office, Vera activated hard encryption, locking every device, wiping her biometric shortcuts, and isolating her comms from station routing. Talbot stood nearby, eyes wide. "We found the breach this morning. It was using old sub-channel IDs from the Orion Compact. Someone inside the Alliance? Or someone given access by them?" Vera stared at the far wall, where the Council's flag shimmered faintly, its intertwined sigils flickering like threads straining under weight. "They're not stalling because they disagree," she said. "They're stalling because they're afraid." Talvin hesitated. "What do we do?" Her voice was quiet. "We stop asking." The stars around the Resolute were quiet, but something in Dravenlock's chest thrummed like tension before a storm. They'd intercepted the rogue fleet just inside the boundary of unclaimed space. 7 ships, once Alliance marked, now stripped of transponder tags and formation discipline. Not deserters, not scavengers, defectors. Draven stood on the command deck, arms folded, watching the projection of the opposing force. One of them, the Gavrin's Reach, an old mid-tier frigate, was broadcasting on an open channel, a direct hail. "They want to speak," Lieutenant Alvarez said quietly. "Put them through." The screen flickered. A worn but sharp-eyed man appeared in the center, wearing a modified officer's coat and no rank insignia. He looked like a commander, but no longer carried the burden of following orders. "Captain Locke." Draven said nothing. "I won't waste your time. You're here to stop us. I'm here to tell you we've already made contact." Her jaw tightened. "With who?" He smiled faintly. The only side that plans to survive. One of her officers stiffened, but Draven raised a hand. Explain. The man leaned forward. We didn't abandon the Alliance. It abandoned us. Dozens of sectors near the coalition line haven't received support in over a cycle. We begged for aid. We were told to wait for votes, for councils, for unity. He spread his hands. But silence is not unity, Captain. It's a warning. Draven's eyes narrowed. So you're surrendering? No, we're surviving. He tapped something off-screen. We've been offered terms, protection, autonomy, and in exchange, silence. We're not the first. We won't be the last. The words hung in the air. Commander Harris stepped beside her, voice low. He's broadcasting on a wideband. This entire speech is going straight to coalition relays. Draven looked back at the screen. Turn your ships around, she said evenly. I'll log it as confusion, fear, no charges, just course correction. The man's smile faded. I've made my choice. Now you'll have to make yours. The channel cut. A moment later, Alvarez whispered, he's moving toward jump alignment. Draven didn't hesitate. Target his engines, disable, don't destroy. Torpedoes armed. The Resolute's weapons locked on, tracking the fleeing signature of the Gavrin's reach. It would only take a second. But her finger hovered over the confirmation switch. This wasn't a pirate, not a traitor. Not yet. This was rot, inside the Alliance. Hollowing them from within. She pressed the trigger. Torpedoes flared silently through space and detonated just behind the fleeing vessel, crippling its propulsion system in a wash of static and light. The ship tumbled, drifting. Boarding teams, she ordered. Secure survivors. Lock them down until Vera's office sends word. Harris gave her a long look. You think that word's ever coming? Draven's expression didn't waver. I don't think it matters anymore. It took Rowan 2 days to reach the core archive. Sendari's lower levels stretched for miles beneath the city, a maze of layered platforms, old transit tubes, and ancient buildings built upon older bones. Most of the entrances had been sealed by the planetary administration years ago, reserved for historical preservation. But history, she was beginning to learn, wasn't preserved. It was buried. Her boots clanged softly against forgotten alloy stairs. The air was heavy with moisture, the kind that whispered through vents like breath from a sleeping beast. The deeper she went, the less her comms functioned, the less light the city offered. Even her HUD struggled to stay calibrated, flickering around the edges. Then, somewhere below, she heard the voice. Faint, not mechanical, not broadcast. A real voice, human, a child. Rowan moved fast, cutting across a derailed tram line and down a side corridor littered with shattered light panes. She paused at a collapsed wall where the sound echoed faintly, almost too soft to be real. Hello? She called. No answer. She ducked through the wreckage, rifle ready, and emerged into what had once been a grand chamber, stone inlaid with pillars, murals along the domed ceiling, and a massive council table cracked in two. And there, curled beneath the remains of a fallen support beam, was a child. No older than 9, wrapped in a tattered thermal cloak, face streaked with ash. His eyes were wide, locked on her weapon. His hands trembled. Rowan holstered her rifle immediately. Hey, it's okay, I'm not here to hurt you. He didn't move. I'm from off-world, she said softly. Are you alone? He nodded. What happened here? The boy swallowed, voice cracked with dehydration. They came with no ships. No ships, he shook his head. No noise, no soldiers, just people with red eyes, and they made everyone quiet. How? They took the speaker first, then the others, then we all had to whisper. Or... He stopped. Rowan knelt beside him, voice calm. Or what? If you talk loud, you disappear. She slowly offered him water. He drank, eyes never leaving hers. Rowan activated a low-beam scanner. Biosigns were weak. He hadn't eaten in days, but he was alive, the only one she'd found. Her scanner pulsed again, another reading nearby. She followed it to the rear of the chamber, where a sealed archival vault sat half embedded in rubble. The Coalition hadn't destroyed it. They'd planted something. A small device pulsed on the outer lock, coiled metal humming faintly. Not a bomb, not a hack tool. Something older, stranger. A waveform suppressor. She'd seen prototypes in ancient Terran warfare studies, devices meant to dampen the will to resist through sound. Subtle frequencies designed not to command but to erase. And it was humming. Rowan stared at it. Not to disable it, but to remember it, because someone had to. The war room aboard the Resolute was locked down. No signals in, no feeds out. Just 3 voices, and the silence growing between them. Vera Keel stood near the table, arms crossed, her diplomatic uniform unfastened at the collar. She looked less like a council figurehead and more like a survivor of a losing game. Across from her, Draven Locke leaned against the edge of the central console, sleeves rolled up, jaw tense. The overhead lights reflected off the faint smudge of grease on her forearm, remnants from inspecting the seized defector ship now parked in Resolute's hold. Rowan Vale entered last, still armored, a young boy trailing behind her, now asleep on a makeshift medcot near the wall. She didn't speak right away, just set a small data crystal down on the table. Draven nodded toward it. That from the chamber? Rowan's eyes were hard. It's not just a signal. It's not just propaganda. It's behavioral control woven into background frequencies. People aren't being convinced. They're being rewritten. Vera's gaze sharpened. So it's a new weapon? No, Rowan said. It's an old one. She looked directly at Vera. And it's working. Vera turned to Draven. Your defector claims several Alliance leaders have already made unofficial agreements. Stay quiet, stay alive. That's the message. He transmitted it before we intercepted them. Rowan stepped closer to the table. Sendari wasn't invaded. It was silenced. They still look like themselves, still act like citizens, but they're hollow. The real damage can't be seen. And the council? Draven asked. Vera didn't answer right away. Then, I've been shut out. Entire factions are calling for my resignation. They say I'm escalating panic. One of them leaked an old recording, spliced and edited, to make it seem like I advocated for unilateral aggression against the Concord worlds. She exhaled slowly. They're trying to discredit me before I speak. Rowan glanced at the child. Then speak louder. Draven leaned back. If you go public now, you could trigger a diplomatic fracture. Vera's reply was immediate. The fracture's already here. The room fell quiet. Then Vera reached for the data crystal Rowan had placed on the table. She loaded the contents into the central projector, the waveform suppressor, the corrupted city, the looping messages, the sound of silence weaponized. She looked at both women. I'm releasing this. Rowan gave a single nod. Draven hesitated. You know what that makes you, don't you? Vera met her eyes. A target. It began with a blink. Across the fringe systems, Alliance comms lit with encrypted pings. Small, harmless, easy to ignore. Then came the black flashes. Dozens of terminals, screens, and data slates across multiple worlds pulsed for precisely 1 second, showing only a single glyph. A closed eye, redlined, fractured across the center. Then the feed returned to normal. By then, it was too late. On the Resolute's bridge, Draven Locke stood before a wall of incoming alerts, none of them hostile, just missing. Fleet patrols stopped reporting. Scout relays went dark. Civilian outposts entered passive silence protocols. Not destroyed, not even disturbed, just still. Alvarez turned from his console, voice low. Captain, we just lost contact with Barrows Visis, then Harthen's Reach. That's 3 Alliance colonies gone dark in the last 6 hours. Draven said nothing. She knew what this was. It was spreading. In a private council archive, Vera Keel watched the aftershock of her broadcast unfold in real time. The footage of Sendari, the waveform device, the corrupted slogans, the surviving child's voice. Some praised her, others condemned her, and some never responded at all. She stood beside a translucent map, dozens of Alliance worlds blinking between active and silent. Her fingers curled into a fist at her side. They weren't being invaded. They were being forgotten. On the outskirts of Sendari, Rowan Vale watched the boy sleep inside a makeshift field tent. He mumbled in his dreams. No words, just breath. She sat outside, her helmet resting in her lap. Above, stars stretched across the sky, bright, beautiful, uncaring. She activated her comm, recorded a single field log. Rowan Vale, Commander. Sendari remains under null protocol. I have 1 survivor, the rest are gone. Not dead, just... She looked toward the city. Quiet. She cut the feed. The silence returned. Far across the void, in an unknown location, a terminal lit up in deep crimson. A figure watched the signals dim one by one until only the glyph remained. Then came the final message, short. No encryption, just words. Words spreading like a whisper from world to world. If you speak, you vanish.